Let's go ahead and deploy our Google Cloud serverless function. This composable function just does something simple. It just flashes a DOM element. Just like that. We now have a useAddClass function that temporarily adds an animation to a DOM element. Let's create a Vue.js Composable Functions Generator built on Google Cloud Functions. Create a new Google Cloud project, authenticate with the Google Cloud SDK. There are tons of videos that do this already. I'm going to skip over this and focus on the actual content. We're going to set up the initial project, build a serverless function, query the LLM, test, deploy, and then lastly, we're going to build a bash function that's going to call this API that we're going to build and give us back a brand new Vue.js composable function based on our query. Let's jump right in. First, I'm going to set up the project. Add your git ignore, and then set up these environment variables. I'm using OpenAI, so we're going to have an OpenAI key, and I'm going to use my own personal secret key so no one else can access this serverless endpoint. Fill these values in the .env and the .env.yaml file. Here's the YAML file. Okay, so I have a basic Google Cloud serverless function set up right now, returning 200. I created a dev.sh file to start the server, and then I created a dev curl.sh file to query our local endpoint. Next, we're going to build out the serverless function, and then we're going to query the LLM to build our Vue.js Composable function. Okay, so as you can see here, we passed in a query, we passed in a model, built our LLM chat completion here just using classic GPT, and we built a prompt example that details out how to create Vue.js Composable Functions. And then we built a prompt that specifies how GPT should act and behave and how it's going to generate our new Vue.js Composable Functions. After we built that module, we simply just added a couple parameters here. We have our query, our model, our secret key. We're checking to make sure the secret key matches. You can add additional checks and balances here. And then we're simply generating the response. We return 200 and then we move forward from there. When we called this using our dev curl script, it gave us a brand new Vue.js Composable function. This composable function just does something simple. It just flashes a DOM element and it looks like it's going to just do it once. So it's going to flash it and then it's going to revert it back to its original color, and it returns this flash function that can be used in any Vue.js component that you're building. Awesome. So now that we know that that's working, let's go ahead and deploy our Google Cloud serverless function. All right, so while this is deploying, let me just talk about what just happened there. So I created a deploy.sh script. This is the file that uses the Google Cloud SDK and the command line to deploy your serverless function. I can definitely create a video going more in depth into this process specifically, but basically all we're doing here is we're telling Google Cloud Platform where exactly our function is, which is the generate composable entry point here. It's going to scan our files. It's going to look for a file there with main. You can see the sources there. And then it's going to look for that function name, which is the name of our function. And as you can see, we are deploying here. So if you want more Google Cloud content, if you want more serverless function content, definitely let me know. Drop a comment. Feel free to sub. And I can definitely create more content like that for you guys. Okay, so awesome. So our serverless function deployed. You can see here, useComposable. And we now have a new endpoint. So let's go ahead and test it out. What I'm going to do here is create a new sh file that hits this production endpoint. All right, and now that that function is deployed, we should be able to just run our prod curl.sh script. Okay, and just like that, we have a deployed serverless function on Google Cloud Functions. And if you go into the Google Cloud console and check your cloud functions, you should see that you have a brand new serverless function. All right, awesome. So now that we have that deployed, we can move into our final step, which is to build a bash function to call the serverless function. We can then move this into our bash RC or bash profile and then have access to building Vue composable functions anywhere from our terminal. Okay, so as you can see here, we called source function to activate our function and add this new VCF, Vue Composable Function, onto the state space of our terminal. We then called VCF. We gave it a string, which is the composable that we want to generate. In this case, we're generating a composable that keeps track of mouse position whenever the mouse moves. And as you can see here, it returned a new Vue.js Composable function. So let's see what this looks like. So this looks great. We have our imports at the top, use mouse position. We have some state references. We have track mouse position, and then it's going to return our XY whenever the mouse moves. And we can detect that the mouse has moved because we set up a on-mounted hook, or should I say our LLM set up a on-mounted hook that has the mouse move event listener. So just like that, with a single command line call, we now have the capability to generate Vue.js composable functions. Let's go ahead and generate a couple more Vue composable functions so we can get the feel for how useful and valuable that this is. I'm gonna go ahead and update the name here to useComposable, run source on this file, and then generate some new composable functions. For instance, we can create a new composable that determines if the device we're on is a mobile device or a desktop device. And just like that, you now have a Vue composable that lets you know if the device is mobile or not. Let's build another. I want a Vue composable function that allows me to temporarily add a CSS animation to a DOM element. All right, and again, just like that, we now have a use add class function that temporarily adds an animation to a DOM element. So you can see here we have the class name, and then we have the add class function that gets passed in. And on a timer, it will activate and then deactivate that CSS class. And you can see here, thanks to our specific prompt, we have a usage example. So we always have an example with every single composable function that we generate. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I hope that you can see the potential of not only Google Cloud Functions to quickly deploy serverless functions, but also the power of ChatGPT combined with, whatever front-end framework you're working with, whatever technology you're working with. You can generate all this stuff on the fly using ChatGPT, using other LLMs. Let your imagination fly. Use this as inspiration, use this as an example to help you build out your personal workflow productivity enhancements. One of the key areas I'm focused on is how can I use this technology to make me faster at building the things I want to build. If you like content like this where we dig into useful applications of modern technology, feel free to drop a like, feel free to subscribe. On this channel, I really want to focus on helping you build your next thing. And that means being up to date with the latest techniques and strategies, as well as tools like Google Cloud Serverless Functions or ChatGPT or Vue.js Composable Functions, whatever it might be. I want to help you develop your thing faster.